what I've discovered since getting out, since becoming more public with my own agency background, is that people really don't, I mean, especially American people, the average American out there doesn't realize how despicable the world outside of our borders really is, right? Like cartels. Cartels literally will torture you, right? Terrorist groups will torture you. Not because there's any strategic benefit from it,
right,
but just because they want to send a message. It's their version of psychological operations. It's a number of different things, right? Not to mention the fact that they're oftentimes like, these are not well-educated, balanced, emotionally stable people who gather into cartels and gather into terrorist organizations or gather into extremist groups. These are desperate people who live hard lives, who learn to live by a code of ethics that's defined by the organization that they come into. So, the idea that you or I might ever actually inflict prolonged pain on somebody, it's difficult to even imagine coming from the American mindset. And it's fascinating to me because oftentimes Americans will get all up in arms about saving whales and about protecting animals from makeup testing. And we'll get upset about immigrants being shipped from Texas to New York.
Right.
Like when you compare those to what's happening in Mexico City, like it's insane that people don't realize how protected and privileged and humane we are, and that we're subdividing and limiting and arguing with each other over minuscule things, and we're calling it humane, and it's the definition of humane is so much wider than what we consider.
I was going to say in the periodically I'll get somebody on that will be either an ATF agent or DEA agent or Raymond Hicks. He's a sheriff's deputy who was in the is it Broward County? Broward County. He was in Broward County Sheriff's Deputy. They had taken him and they were using him to do controlled buys because he grew up in the streets, right? So it's hard for a normal cop to come off like a drug dealer. He's even if it's a black guy, right? Like if he's a black guy raised upper middle class, drug dealers they talk to you for 5 minutes. Go, absolutely not. Like you're trying to talk this, but I can feel it's not you. Intuition is insane, right? So Hicks goes out and he's one of these guys selling drugs and they're busting people, but the other deputies are stealing money. Like they're taking money from the drug dealers. So he starts to speak out about it, starts to complain about it, starts to make waves, and they go, "Oh no, you're a problem." They send him to go back and work in the jail, which is where he'd come from. He said, "I didn't care about that," but he had made statements where you guys should be in jail. Not some of these drug dealers. Like you guys are just as bad as them. You're stealing from them. You're beating them up. What ends up happening is they end up basically including him on a case. It's like 700 kilos of cocaine or something. It's ridiculous. And he ends up going to trial and wins. They then arrest him again and indict him for something else. This time that he goes to trial again and wins. He lost everything. Like he lost, his savings, his house, everything through this process. He was actually arrested again, and keep in mind, every time they raided his house. So, and in the comments section, guys are saying, we're the most corrupt country. We're the most, and they keep it. And I'm always in there going, okay, look, there's corruption. Any system, you could design the perfect system, but the moment you put humans in charge of it, there is going to be issues. There's going to be corruption. People are going to take advantage of it. So, and they're, our justice system is the most corrupt. Stop. It's not the most corrupt. Okay. Is there corruption? Yes. Yeah. Is there an old boys network in some situations? Absolutely. But there's just, it's certainly not the most, actually, look, I honestly think maybe I met one or two people that it was questionable that maybe they were innocent. And I know one guy that he's innocent. He should have got some time for stupidity. Just for putting yourself in this situation and being stupid, you should have known better. I don't think he was technically what he did was illegal, but you're an idiot. You should have done 2 years just for being stupid. So, but still innocent. Honestly, other than that, the only real disparities I've seen is in sentencing. You're not innocent. You didn't deserve 15 years. I read your whole case. I read the transcript. You shouldn't have gotten 15 years. You probably should have got a year or two. But is that corruption? Like, no, maybe it's slightly unfair and it's not, but in comparison to other countries, bro, come on.
Yeah.
This is people in America, there's no idea how brutal it is out there.
It is. It's wild. It's wild that in countries like Thailand, in countries like UAE, in countries like Saudi Arabia, you can't speak out and say a negative comment. Even privately, it's legally culpable to say a negative comment about a royal family, right? The royal family of Thailand, the Saudi royals, or one of the 7 royal families that are inside UAE. To even say something negative about them makes you legally culpable. And the prisons, I mean, you can imagine what a prison looks like in UAE. It's not like the prisons here in the United States where people are given, a closed space where the barred windows are still windows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's pretty wild. And it's also interesting because you were just talking about the sentencing being the area of discrepancy, right? I don't think people understand how our justice system works. It is a system that pushes all authority to the judges, right? Judges have independent authority over their court, and judges can't even agree with other judges. It is the exact opposite of objective. It is a subjective world. They get to interpret the law. They get to apply the law. They get to do it in their district, their municipality. If they're a Supreme Court judge, they do it federally. And I didn't realize this until recently either. Judges are oftentimes given lifetime judgeship.
Yeah.
Lifetime. Yeah. Like, so if you get accepted to be a judge at whatever age, 35, 45, 55, whatever it might be, you never have to leave. It's not publicly elected. Yeah. After that, like you're a judge forever. So you're
not really concerned about public opinion because it's almost impossible to get rid of me.
Exactly. It's insane, man. And that's the justice system, which is one of the 3 legs that our entire American system is built on, right? The judicial branch. It's one of those things to me that's both a superpower and a vulnerability in our system because we have that process.
Right.
Where you do have to earn the right to be a judge. You do have to be publicly elected.
And it's reviewed. There's a review process and a review process and a review process up to the Supreme Court if they want to hear it, because they don't always have people like, oh, go to the Supreme Court. They don't have to hear it.
Yeah.
But there's a review process all the way up through the whole thing. The only problem is it does take a long time. It is cumbersome, and you may have to sit in jail for 5 years until your situation gets rectified. But the fact that there is the possibility of it being cleared up,
a system at all,
right?
Yeah.
Right. It's funny. There was a guy, Ephraim Deveroli, had told me one time. This goes against what you're saying. He said they can do anything they want to you as long as they give you a system to appeal it. And I was like, oh wow! Like the way he said that, I was like, wow. He's a think about it. Like, oh, you have a problem with that? Well, here, fill out this form.
Yep.
You can appeal it. It goes to the next step. Oh, you didn't like our opinion? Great, go to the next step. So he's like, they'll drag it out. By the time maybe you'll win, he said, but 2 years later, you've already done your sentence.
Yeah, ours
are not perfect.
No, I agree. And what's wild to me is that what I've discovered in my kind of CIA experience looking at the United States is we are very much a country of conviction. We're looking for and rewarding the most convicted people, the people who can show the most tenacity, the most determination, the most diligence. And all of our systems are created to eat away at each of those things, right? So that the person who doesn't have follow through, the person who isn't tenacious, the person who doesn't have the courage to keep pushing on, the person who gives up, that's our favorite kind of person. That's inside the United States. Everybody loves the person who gives up because the person who gives up just pays a little extra money to have somebody else fix the problem. The person who gives up pays their taxes on time and at the maximum rate. The person who gives up just follows the rule of law and crosses at the crosswalk. The person who gives up is the person that everybody gets to walk on. And we raise people to get walked on. Public school raises you to be walked on. Church raises you to get walked on. Like we live in a culture that's literally propagating the idea that to be a good citizen, you have to shut up and take it. And then the people who don't, the few that don't, and the few who show the resilience year after year, decade after decade, to not get stepped on and to not put up with shit, those few people end up being wildly successful, and they become the target of criticism and anger from everybody else. But by then, they've already gotten accustomed to being yelled at all the time. So they just roll with it, right? That's look at your Steve Jobses, look at your Elon Musks, look at your Donald Trumps, look at all these fantastic celebrity names.
Right.
But then you don't even have to look at the biggest names. The people out there who are making millions of dollars a year in silence because they're the kings of their industry, the king of the tire industry, the king of the motor oil industry, the king of the foam wall industry. They all have tops of their industries. And inside their industry, I guarantee you, they are hated and despised by everybody else who's just trying to scratch by and make a living.
I was going to say, I had a guy one time who was telling me we were talking about the middle class or something. He actually was kind of like almost mocking the middle class. And I was like, bro, like I wish I had been middle class to be honest, you know, like I wouldn't have had to go to jail. I wouldn't have lost all the things that I lost, and all because of my fault. But because it's like the middle class, like, you know, they are the backbone, you know what I'm saying? But you're right. But you're absolutely right. Like that is what, and I always joked about this, about any type of program in prison is designing you is they're educating you to go work at Walmart. Yeah. Like it just like public school, they're educating you to go get a lower middle class or middle class job. Like that's really what high school is. Hey, by the time you're done with high school, you are educated to be lower middle class. You know what I'm saying? Like still middle class, yeah, but not on the high end. So that's what they want, because they need that massive tax base to follow the rules and pay in everything. And, you know, and as horrible as this might sound, you know, God bless them. Like
it's critical.
It's critical. Absolutely. It's exact. We would fail as a country without them. And it just didn't work for me.
Well, and this is what I think is so interesting, because as much as people might want to hate the fact that what we're saying is true, the other thing that's also true is that the reason we are the world's superpower, the reason we are the top economic engine in the world,
right,
is because we have created this massive
class, right,
class of cogs.
Yeah.
Right? Cogs that are dissatisfied, angry, frustrated. You know, they bitch about it when they go home. They struggle for 35 years and they complain, but they still do it.
You know what's funny though?
You go to any other foreign country out there, and what you'll find is that the lack of cog-based education becomes a massive drain on their economy.
Right. And they would die to be in that position in the United States. What's funny is it's so funny because it's just circumstantial, because the same people that are middle class today, or even lower middle class, 100 years ago, like the Rockefellers, these people are all living better than them. They say, oh no, they don't have as much money. Doesn't matter. They have dental care. They're not going to. They have medical. They're going to live twice as long. I forget which. Like one of the Rockefellers lost like 3 kids. I don't know if it was a Rockefeller, but it was one of these guys that like he lost like 3 kids and his wife, like to diseases that now you go to the doctor and they'd be like, here, take these pills for 10 days. You're good. You know, what are you talking about?
And they won't, because we'll only take our pills for 7 days. And then we'll feel better because we know more than the doctor, right? It's insane, because you're exactly right? Dental technology of the 1950s, dental technology of the 1920s pales in comparison to what we get right now on your employer's health insurance plan.
Yeah. Well, and YouTube, entertainment, like across the board, your life is so substantially better. But you know, people, it's because it's so available and cheap that they don't appreciate it.
Yeah, they don't understand it.
You go to prison for 10 years, get out and be like, I'm walking around with my cell phone like, oh my God, this is amazing.
There are boobs right here.
I could watch anything. So, and I could find anything.
That's the availability heuristic, man. That's exactly what we're talking about. When you're surrounded and inundated by cheap entertainment and boxed wine and anything that you could possibly want, it's all available to you. Right. So then you think it's something that it's not. You take it for granted. Yeah. You assume it's either less important or more important than it really is. Like that's all part of that cognitive bias that distorts your point of view.
Well, I have guys with YouTube, since this is something we have in common, with the YouTube thing. It's funny. I'll meet these guys that are like, oh, you're doing a YouTube channel? Oh, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what else do you do? I'm like, no, it's like paying like all my bills. Like, it's great. It's actually working. Like, it's working. And they're like, oh, well, that must be nice. I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, but I didn't put up a video, bro. Yeah. Like I had a plan. Yep. I had a long-term plan.
And you grind.
And even the first videos I was putting out for the first 6 months, every video was called The Grind. It was like The Grind, and then the title, like Grind 1. We got video, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I did it for 6 months, and every week I was putting something out. And it was like, it doesn't matter what I put out. To put out something, it has to be longer than, I had a strategy. It has to be like 15 minutes or longer. So it's 15 to 30 minutes every week, and it doesn't matter what I do. I have to put it out. Why? Because YouTube is, the algorithm wants consistency. Yeah. So I was putting them out constantly. I was coming up with a decent thumbnail. I watched 10 videos on what a thumbnail looks like. I had this long-term strategy, and it's like, Well, how did you know it was going to work? I didn't know it was going to work, but it doesn't take that long. And I didn't have anything else going on in my life. And
because I'm an ex-con.
Right. Like, what's
it's either this or McDonald's.
Right, if it
I'm going to take my chances on this.
I'm not in any worse position. Like this takes an extra 5 hours, you know, and I was editing the videos myself. It's like, and I got to that point, and I remember even saying, I can do this for so long, and then I am going to have to get to a point where I'll be out of material, and I have to start interviewing people, other criminals. But at that point, I want to have like a 3-camera setup, right? So I had so I start, people by this point, people are reaching out to you. What can I do to help you? I like you. And I'm going on other podcasts because I knew if I go on other podcasts, I'll get more subscribers. I kind of conscript. I always think I'm conscripting their subscribers. And everybody's like, oh, well, you have a story. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if you have a story because everybody's got a story. There are other podcasts, entire platforms that are based on the fact that they're starting a podcast or that they're starting a small business and they need content. There are entire websites that are dedicated that you can put up a 5-minute video about here's who I am. And it could be as simple as I worked at McDonald's for 6 years. I don't like where my life is going. I don't want to go to college for 4 years. It's not what I want to do. I dropped out of high school. I talked to my mom. I don't know. You just tell a silly a story that you think this is nothing. And this is what I'm doing. And I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. And I've got 300 subscribers, and half of those are my relatives and friends. And I really need people to subscribe. And here's what I talk about on my podcast. I'd like to come on your podcast and talk about being a podcaster. And if you put that out there, believe it or not, you'd probably get 4 or 5 different interviews from other YouTubers about your channel, and it would grow. And people don't realize that. You just have to be consistent, and it grows and it grows and it grows.
So fresh, so new.